Hey, Victoria here from Victoria Finley Wolf Quilts. I have a little secret I want to share with you. For all of you who are afraid of doing Y seams, I love to teach this, but I want to give you the little secret that you need to know for success. Do you know what a Y seam is? It's also when you're not sewing a straight seam, when you have to pivot at a certain point, okay? Oftentimes in a Lemoyne star block, it's a Y seam because you're actually making a Y, okay? So I'm going to show you that, but I want to show you this quilt, the Garden Variety, because this is a quilt that I teach. It's a pattern and the templates that I have. The pattern's available in the website. This pattern is called Garden Variety. And the templates that we're using are the stretch hexagon and the tumbler. So I want to be able to show you how we're sewing this together. Anytime you're sewing a Y seam, there's just one little trick that you need to know. And why I use this when I'm teaching, this is a great skill building class because the white parts that you can see here are the stretch hexagon, right? This is the template in the middle. And in between it are two tumblers, okay? So that's just like the sample that I have lying here. So as I'm learning to sew that Y seam that's not straight, I'm able to learn how to do it one at a time. In this quilt, we're making this into a row, which makes it very achievable and easy to learn. I find that when I'm teaching it, it takes people about 6 of those seams. Once they get through those, they've got it. They'll struggle through that first bit. Then when they understand how the fabric moves and works underneath the needle, I'll turn around again 2 minutes later and I've got the whole row done. So this is not something you should ever be afraid of to learn, but here's the main tip that you need to know. So here's our little unit that I want to show you that we're going to be working on. Here's my stretch hexagon and my 2 tumblers. Anytime I'm going to sew this together, I'm going to put my 2 tumblers together. And wherever you have a Y seam or a seam that's not straight that you have to sew together, you start sewing a 1/4 inch in from your raw edge and a 1/4 inch out on the other side. Okay, so that right there is what I'm going to sew. And by doing that, let me show you on this one. I press my seam open because now that I didn't sew all the way off the end of my fabric, do you see that I can move that? That's what I want to happen when I have to sew that seam that is not a straight seam. We want that little flange so that the movement of the fabric can open up. So now, let's look at this way. When I'm going to sew this together, we're going to line up our edges. We always measure in. That little dog ear lands at a 1/4 inch from the raw edge. That's how we know how much of a dog ear to hang off the end. So if I put my needle in right there, I'm going to have 2 pieces of fabric. Okay, so we're going to do that. We're pressing that seam open. I can tell when I'm lining this up that this gray piece that's pressed open lines up with the point that's underneath it. So now when I sew, I'm going to sew all the way down, and I'm going to leave my needle, this is going to be my needle, in the down position, right where that seam is pressed open. And because I did not sew off the edge of my fabrics, this is going to pivot just perfectly under my needle. And then I will continue to sew out to the outside edge. That is the whole trick when you're doing a Y seam. So whether you're doing hexagons on the machine, little ones, big ones, if you saw my Garden for All Seasons, I was using these in combinations with each other. Again, this is my seam that turns. Anytime in a quilt, when I have a Y seam, I need to stop a 1/4 inch from the edge of the fabric. I need the fabric to be able to move. That's also the case when you're working with Y seams, doing Lemoyne star blocks, okay? When you're sewing these units together, you're gonna have that angle again that turns and pivots. Wherever the Y seam is, you're gonna stop at 1/4 inch in and a 1/4 inch out. If it's the end of the block, then we sew off the end of the fabric, only where there's the Y seam. So that works on either this or the large diamond. These are all available at my website. Because then you have, when you take just those few minutes to learn something new, you then have this as an opportunity to do, the garden variety quilt, the big block star quilt, which is hanging up here at my right, and also the thunderstruck pattern. Now these are some of my most popular pieces that I have in the shop. Great skills to learn. I highly encourage you that if you're starting those out, then go ahead and order the pattern with the templates, because it's going to tell you exactly how I teach it in the class. That is the best advice I can tell you for capturing those perfect pivot points in your seams, and you are going to have so many more blocks that you're going to want to play with. So make sure to visit vfwquilts.com. Don't be afraid to try something new. It only takes about 15 minutes, and maybe while you're there you might need to pick up a pre-order on my new book coming out in August, end of August, early September, called Modern Quilt Magic. I almost forgot what the name of my book was. I was just having so much fun playing with Y seams. I don't know where my brain is. So have a good day, guys. Take care.